between turns 6 and 7, being turn 7 the last corner of the circuit. Simply, Kurt, just to let these drivers, instead of doing an entire lap to get back to pit lane, they can click off their lap time, know what it is, and come straight to pit road.
And you mentioned lap time. Okay, sure, that's great. Kind of, get a baseline for where everybody is. One of the first things, Todd, that strikes me about watching just the first lap of this first group practice session is when everybody goes into turn number 1, they're all just right there, kind of playing it straight, right on the racing surface. We all know that when race conditions take place, when they go into turn 1, drivers tend to flare out to drivers left, out into the runoff area. Things get kind of chaotic. How much from practice, other than a lap time, really translates to what we're going to see here tomorrow?
I think you sort out the balance of your race car, and the good drivers are working on what they need to feel in different areas. Braking stability down the hill into turn 1 here. It's kind of unique that it's a downhill braking zone. You've got another one that's slightly uphill into what we call the inner loop now, what we used to call the bus stop. There's 3 really, really big braking zones here, and trying to make sure your car has good. And you talked about it. We've kind of paved the runoff areas, got rid of pea gravel. A lot of the places around here, that just made the racing group wider. It became asphalt that the drivers use, and it's kind of changed up what's here. But there is finding that balance and seeing where your balance progresses through this run will apply to what they see, especially if they're the pole sitter and have clean air come race time.
2 groups. Group 1 is on the track right now, 25 minutes for practice. Once they wrap up, Group 2 will have then 25 minutes of practice. Here in the first group of cars, 20 of them on the track already. After lap number 1, the fastest is now Justin Haley, but Kyle Larson's just clicked off now his second lap, which is quicker, and Larson will go to the top of the leaderboard. We mentioned Steve Post and Chris Wilner. They're on the pit lane. Let's talk to them now, starting first of all with Steve Post.
And what we're watching down here and what we're looking at here is what everyone else is looking at. What's SVG doing? Shane Van Gisbergen, and maybe even a little bit of Connor Zilic, who's in this first group. There's just a lot of eyes on their telemetry as to what Shane is doing here in his opening laps and how that car is going. And they feel like that's the benchmark that they're going to have to do. And matter of fact, I think there's some in that Group B are really happy that the benchmark, SVG, and maybe Connor Zilic are in this first group to kind of give them an idea where they need to be at. But I'm with Todd on this one. I think the goal, and we had Phil Surgeon on Crew Call this week, and Phil said the goal was to get as many laps. We don't want to come in and work on the race car. You don't want to make any adjustments to the car. If you feel like you're close, just try to run it out and see what the car does over a long run. This race tomorrow is going to be run over longer runs, and I think that's what the teams are looking for, and we'll see how close they are and whether they feel they can do it or if they'll need to come down and make some adjustments. So always fascinating qualifying here, and it is a picture-perfect day in the Finger Lakes of New York here at Watkins Glen International.
Chris Wilner?
Alex, on my end of pit road, it's kind of nice when you have multi-car teams like Hendrick Motorsports that kind of have their first guinea pig out in group number 1. The way the qualifying metric is set up, Kyle Larson, the lone Hendrick Motorsports driver, out for this first session. And of course, Kyle Larson, a 2-time winner here, but Watkins Glen hadn't been too kind to him as of late, and really the road courses in general has been outside of the top 10, actually more like 32nd or worse in 3 of the 4 road course races this year. I know Cliff Daniels been on the radio trying to get Kyle up to speed, but again, they're all watching the SMT data down here between Chase Elliott, William Byron, and Alex Bowman, all at their pit stands, kind of seeing what Kyle is starting to do aboard that Hendrick Cars Chevrolet. You heard Todd Gordon talk about running this practice session full. That is the plan for the Hendrick Cars Chevrolet of Kyle Larson, as well as, I believe, the most of the Hendrick Motorsports groups. But again, the weather today, hot and sunny. We're going to see where this racetrack begins to transition when more rubber gets laid down over the course of 25 minutes. But certainly, this is a unique racetrack. We talk about how fast it is, how much commitment you need to have here, and so these drivers are trying to figure out what they need out of their race car, because it's awfully technical in some of the slow sections, but you got to have the outright speed as well when it comes to qualifying, because track position here is going to be critical when we get to the race tomorrow. So lots of eyes on telemetry down here on the far end of pit road toward pit exit for the Hendrick Motorsports teams.
Chris mentioned the weather today. Currently 80 degrees, climbing toward a high of 85, but it feels like even higher, reaching into the 90s. From Watkins Glen International, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
You've never been one to idly watch someone else do something for you. There's pride in self-reliance, in working with your hands, in harnessing the power of an E3 spark plug with Diamond Fire technology, yielding better engine performance. You have a choice to make. Take control of your ride, of your life, or be the passenger princess of it. Visit e3sparkplugs.com to put the power in your hands.
Do you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is letting everyone know about great debt relief options now available to help people with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of your credit card debt. Get a free debt relief consultation when you call 800-212-2828. 800-212-2828. That's 800-212-2828.
Practice and pole qualifying from Watkins Glen International brought to you on MRN by E3 Spark Plugs. Stuck in slow motion? Unleash the NASCAR fire inside your engine with E3 Spark Plugs. Forget pit stops too. E3 gives you maximum fuel efficiency for more miles on the road and less time at the pump. E3 Spark Plugs. Power, speed, domination. Get yours today.
25 minutes is what we started with for Group 1. We're down to 16 and a half minutes left in practice. And when you come to pit lane in the opening 3 or 4 minutes of practice, Steve Post, sometimes that's not a good thing. Kyle Busch has just come to pit lane.
Yeah, Kyle Busch, a two-time winner here at Watkins Glen, but he reported to Randall Burnett, the crew chief, the car is very, very loose into the corner and off the corner. He said the center is not bad, but it's very, very loose. They were looking at the telemetry. It was specifically bad down into turn number 1. Turns 1 and 2, he really lost a lot of time. Pretty good over in the inner loop, and kind of halfway in the middle when you look at turn 6 and 7. So they made the decision after a couple laps, hey, this is not going to get better. Let's bring him down, get that car freed up and tightened up, and he's rolling back down pit road, and they're hoping for a little bit better run. Kyle, when we look at road courses this year, he's had 2 top 5 finishes on the season, and both have come at road courses. So they're looking at this as a big opportunity and taking an adjustment here to try to give themselves the best shot for a good qualifying run, and more importantly, a good race here tomorrow afternoon.
And here at Watkins Glen, turn 1, it's downhill. It's a downhill braking zone, a lot of weight transfer to the front tires, keeping stability with the rear of the car. It's a challenge you're going to fight here. And to hear him say turn 1's is his worst point, that kind of makes sense, but it's one of those pieces. If you can overcome that, you make yourself better everywhere.
Kyle Busch recently told someone that he said Watkins Glen, one of his favorite tracks to come to. Maybe surprising in the sense that, yeah, he's had success, but hasn't had the overwhelming type of success here that he's had elsewhere. But that said, it seems like over the years, anytime we come to upstate New York, he's got a smile on his face, he's anxious to get back in the race car, and he loves this layout.
He does. He ran the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race yesterday, but didn't enjoy the experience all that much. Finished dead last yesterday after having a steering box issue, retired him early in the going. So tough weekend for Kyle Busch, at least yesterday. We'll see how today fares for Kyle as we continue on. 20 cars here in group number 1. As of right now, single lap speeds, here's how all 20 of them stack up.
It is Justin Haley who is the quickest thus far, followed by Michael McDowell, then Chris Buescher, defending winner of this race. He's been 3rd quick overall. Ty Gibbs 4th. Kyle Larson 5th. Then Shane Van Gisbergen, no better than 6th quick here in these opening few minutes of practice. Connor Zilic right behind him in 7th. Todd Gilliland 8th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 9th. And Cole Custer shows at the 10th spot.
Daniel Suarez on single lap speeds is 11th. Kyle Busch is 12th. Riley Herbst is 13th. Zane Smith 14th. Ty Dillon is 15th. Noah Gregson is 16th. Cody Ware 17th, Catherine Legg is 18th, J.J. Yaley 19th, and Josh Balicki is 20th.
Just heard Alex say that Riley Herbst 13th quick overall thus far.
And Kurt Becker just kind of monitoring some of the radios. Riley Herbst is one of the drivers that early brought in his Toyota, one of the guinea pigs for 2311 in this first session. Much like what Steve Post report with Kyle Busch, really loose on fire-off. And one of the detriments here, because of the limited practice time, is this is their only real opportunity to make a change. They went to change on the rears. He said turn 1 was the worst as far as getting the car to really be plugged into the racetrack on corner exit. So listening to Davin Restivo, the crew chief, trying to make some of these changes. He said, we need to run the rest of this out just to kind of get a ballpark, because on 5-lap tires, we're still about 2/10 off from where we need to be. So a lot of work for the Toyota for Riley Herbst as his plan is to round the rest of the session, but awfully unhappy with the fire off here in the early portion of the session.
As we continue under the green flag here in group number 1, 12 and a half minutes to go. When we look at timing and scoring, Todd, the most laps anybody's run so far has been 8 laps. It's looking like they're about 0.8 of a second or so slower on their 8th lap than they were on their fastest lap, which was their second. So that's something I think a lot of folks have to pay close attention to. What is the tire degradation going to do? What is that going to do as far as the lap times go, and how you can continue to build a notebook for this weekend?
Yeah, that's definitely something the crew chiefs are going to be paying attention to. And it's not as much what happens with that one fast lap as it is, what that separation might be 0.8 of a second. But if you can only run that fast lap for one lap, and then you come back and you can kind of maintain at a slower pace from there, that's where we start to see a lack of fall off as we look forward. And you look at this whole piece, the top 3 cars, fast lap, are only separated by 4/1000ths of a second over a minute. It's a minute 12 and 6/10. 4/1000ths between those 3. You look at it, Kyle Larson's P5 on fast lap, but Kyle Larson's P2 on 5-lap average. Seems like that car hangs on to its pace.
So far, the 2 quickest cars come from the Spire Motorsports stable, Justin Haley and Michael McDowell. Steve Post, I know you had a chance to interact with Michael already earlier today. You caught up with him in the media center.
And Michael McDowell had some fascinating things to talk about here at this racetrack in Watkins Glen. Asked him what he was looking for in this practice session, and Michael said, well, it's really interesting because there's 2 different aspects of Watkins Glen. There's the speed aspect, which is what they're looking for today to get a good starting spot. He said the speed aspect, you want the car to go up through the S's and through the inner loop really, really good. He said speed is important, but tomorrow in the race, passing is most important. Passing is in 2 different spots of the racetrack. Passing is down into turn number 1, as Todd Gordon has talked about, and passing is also into turn number 6. So they're working on trying to get good speed to get a good qualifying run, but a good feel for the race car. They just brought the car in, and the team has gone to the second channel to communicate what was going on with the car, but I did see some shock adjustments on the rear of the car. Crew member up under the rear of the car making some adjustments on it. They're second fastest in single lap speed, so I think they feel like they're close. I think that they're just working on fine-tuning that car. And again, that balance, and Todd Gordon, I'll bring you in, that balance, it's kind of interesting that 2 parts of the racetrack are most important today, and 2 parts of the racetrack are most important tomorrow for racing.
Yeah, definitely one of the things that's changed here with the Gen 7 car. The curbs have changed a little bit in the different zones. It's affected the inner loop piece in the background. Nice. It was interesting to hear Michael talk about really into turn 6 and into turn 1 as a braking zones where you can make passes. You've got to think forward. It's not just about today, it's about tomorrow, and work on both those balances together.
We're in the mid stages here of practice number 1 for group number 1. Their one and only practice for the weekend, and it's Justin Haley, not only the fastest in a single lap speed, Justin Haley's the fastest on a 5-lap consecutive average, and Justin Haley is the fastest on a 10 consecutive lap average as well. We'll talk more about GLEN International. This is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Every time the siren sounds,
Group 1 on the track practicing for tomorrow's Go Bowling at the Glen. Fastest, as I mentioned a moment ago, single lap speeds is Justin Haley. He's also the best on the 5 consecutive lap average and the 10 consecutive lap average. So you might not necessarily think Justin Haley's a road course ace. He's started 28 NASCAR Cup Series road course races, 2 top 5 finishes, and 3 top 10s. He's led 23 laps in his Cup Series career, but Kurt, today's a different day.
It is. He is 0 for 28 lifetime on road courses in the NASCAR Cup Series. He has, however, been a road course winner in other divisions among those top 3 series. Might remember early in his career, go way back to when he was starting out in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. He got the win when we used to go up to Bowmanville, east of Toronto. So he does have some road course accomplishments on his resume. You touched on that. Steve Post, what about Justin Haley? How much is he saying to the crew during this practice session on the radio?
Kurt, he has not said one word to the crew on this radio, and I think this kind of boils back to something. I'll share a little bit more of the conversation we had with Michael McDowell. Spire Motorsports has gone a total different direction than they started the season with their overall road course package, and they feel really, really good about it. So McDowell feels good about his car, obviously, but it's transferring to Justin Haley. And to talk about some of the struggles, some of the woes, his best finish at Watkins Glen is an 18th place finish. So this has certainly not been a good track for him. Now, bringing it to the here and now in this practice session, I checked in with the crew, and I said, what's Justin saying? He has not said one word. About 2 laps ago, they said, focus forward, it looks good. That's all they've told him, and he is out here just picking up laps and laying them down, and I think this falls under the category of they feel pretty good about their race car, and they're certainly in the camp right now that appears to be running this the full 25 minutes just to see what the car does over the long run, and I think they're like what they're seeing. I know you guys with the 5-lap and 10-lap average, you got to love what you're seeing here for Justin Haley, and just see how it plays out here as the day and as the weekend rolls on.
Yeah, it's impressive what they've done, and being able to have that pace and to work through this and run this whole practice out. As Michael McDowell was talking about earlier, one of the benefits, if you can run this whole practice out, you're going to be lighter on fuel come qualifying time. Another advantage to actually having a good balance when you unload your race car.
So Justin Haley still the fastest on single lap speeds as well as the 5 and 10 lap average, but Michael McDowell, the Spire Motorsports teammate, second quick on the single lap speeds, then Chris Buescher, Ty Gibbs, and Kyle Larson, 5th on the board in single lap speeds.
A driver that's had his share of success winning road course events. Heck, he wins everywhere he goes, it seems. But Kyle Larson in the top 5 as far as fastest individual lap thus far in this session. Let's follow up there. 5 minutes to go in the session.
Just listening in to Kyle Larson, it's one of those things where in this Group 1 session, you've got quite a list of drivers to compare yourself to. I mean, Todd Gordon, I know you were talking about a little bit ago, the fact that we potentially have a race winner in this opening group between SVG and Connor Zilic as well as Michael McDowell. Now for Kyle Larson, it's just trying to diagnose where he needs to be better. This Group 1 has been so tight on single lap speeds and then those in the longer run. Now Larson feels like the longer that his opening session went, the better the car felt. He felt like turn 1, though, was a little bit more of a struggle, and the carousel was where he started to capitalize a little bit. But just trying to diagnose the minor changes, because it all comes down to those little fractions of a second that could be the difference in a good qualifying run. So Cliff Daniels brought this Chevrolet down. The crew went around each corner of the race car. They even put a chassis wrench in the window to make a minor adjustment there, just to help Kyle every little bit. But it's super tight in this opening group, so trying to see where you stack up with some of the other competitors like the road racing prowess of SVG, Connor Zilic, and Michael McDowell. So they're trying to get a good read on it, but again, made one adjustment here, and the plan is to run the final 4 minutes out.
Yeah, it's been really impressive. Justin Haley, you look at the lap content here, he's winning everything. He's fastest on single lap, fastest on 5, fastest on 10, fastest on 15. He's not even one of the guys I thought out of this group that was probably a contender. But when you look at the top of this group, you've got Haley's leading it, didn't have him there, but McDowell, Buescher, last year's winner, Ty Gibbs, who's given SVG runs at road courses, and then you come back to Larson, Van Gisbergen, and Zilic. There's a lot of hefty competition in this first group.
There is, as we continue on, down to 3 minutes and 25 seconds left for Group 1 practice. And when I look at the tire lap time drop-off, Justin Haley, from his fastest lap on lap 2 to lap 16, the drop-off is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2.5 seconds for what he's been doing. Go back further to Shane Van Gisbergen. His drop-off, well, it's a little more significant than that. So the way the chassis hangs on is impressive as well over the longer run.
And doesn't that go back, Todd, to what you talked about as far as the purpose of these practice sessions? In fact, we'll follow up with Todd in a moment. Right now, let's check. Let's get more info on Shane Van Gisbergen. Back to Steve Post.
He just cued the radio about 2 laps ago and said the rear is junk. And I think it sounds like they're fighting a loose condition on the rear of the car. And he says, do you want me to bring it in? And Stephen Doran, the crew chief, said, we only have 3 or 4 minutes left, and we don't have time to make any adjustments, so just run it out. So it appears that they've ran the rear tires off from this car for SVG, and that might show when you guys talked about the lap speeds from lap 1 over a longer run. Seems to be the case with Shane Van Gisbergen. So they're going to come in, make some adjustments, and go out and qualify, but they're going to run this thing right to the finish and just see what they learn about the trends and what they learn over the course of a few more laps in this session.
If you're a competitor listening to that, don't take favor out of that. I remember him being pretty critical of his race car in Sonoma as well, and turned out to be really pretty good come race day.
Todd, we often talk about the challenges of racetracks, and let's focus specifically on road courses. The challenges a road course can present for any given driver. And of course, each road course has its own idiosyncrasies. From your perspective as a championship-winning crew chief, a crew chief who has won in the Cup Series at Watkins Glen, is it the same for a crew chief? We tend to think about drivers. Challenges for a crew chief when we come to a road course.
Yeah, and different road courses bring different challenges. We often talk about Watkins Glen being the super speedway of road course races. There's a lot of high-speed aero stuff here. You've got to keep platform in your car. You've got to keep yourself... It's Sonoma, you can let the car roll up and be kind of soft and grippy. Here you've got to make sure that carousel, you're coming out of the inner loop, you're entering the carousel, that's a kind of almost an oval corner backwards. You've got to make sure that your platform's good. It's a different challenge, and it's one for crew chiefs. They've got to hit on this piece. Another car that I think will be in the mix here, Ty Gibbs in this practice, working pretty hard forward about this. Chris Miller, you've got more on what they're talking about.
Yeah, Todd, so far so good for Ty Gibbs. He's been relatively quiet on the radio. They did opt to bring him down to pit road just to make one minor adjustment. Again, talking about just the fractions of minor things you can do to find that extra little bit of speed. Ty Gibbs' major complaint is just fighting a loose condition throughout the racetrack, but has really started to focus now on the long run before coming down pit road. But you talked about it, the high-speed sections of this racetrack seem to be kind of the bugaboo for this group, trying to find a little bit more grip in the racetrack, starting to feel the car sliding in some of those high-speed sections. So Ty Gibbs came down, made a minor adjustment, but again, in the window is kind of the key I'm getting from this group right now as they sit top 5 in single lap speed.
Single lap speeds continue to be led by Justin Haley, who's just brought his car to the pit lane. Justin Haley in Group 1, the fastest in single lap speeds, the fastest in the 5-lap consecutive average, the fastest in the 10, and the fastest in the 15. Justin Haley, I think, raising a lot of eyebrows here in practice. Number 1 here for tomorrow's Go Bowling at the Glen. Red and black flags are in the air from Brett Dalton on top of the flag stand. Group 1 practice is wrapping up. We'll have Group 2 cars on the track in just a moment. From Watkins Glen International, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Hi, I'm Kyle Petty, and I want to tell you about a place that's near and dear to my heart, Victory Junction. It's a year-round camp that gives kids with complex medical and physical conditions life-changing experiences that are fun, empowering, and always free for families.
If, and we know you do, listen to the Motor Racing Network's coverage of NASCAR Cup Series practice each and every week. Todd, a lot of times we talk about the Group 1 drivers and teams being at a bit of a detriment by being in Group 1 because of the racetrack conditions. Is that a detriment at Watkins Glen?
Much less of one here. Much less of one here because you've got 2.45 miles of racetrack. So the racetrack doesn't really get rubbered in like we do in a traditional oval practice. You think about like a Dover or a Bristol where you actually get black into the racetrack. It can be a big swing from Group 1 to Group 2. We're making multiple laps. The most laps anybody ran in that practice running all the way through was 19. So we're not seeing a racetrack that goes through a rubbering in profile where it gets more like race time. I think these two practices are more connected to each other than any other of the regular ovals we go to.
Connor Zilic, one of the drivers who was on the track for that Group 1 practice session, he was 7th quickest overall. Steve Post, I suppose when you've got Darian Grubb as your crew chief, that's never a bad thing.
No, championship-winning crew chief Darian Grubb, and just heard an absolutely detailed breakdown of the car. Connor Zilic, and built free over the course of the run. That means loose. That means the rear end wanted to step out. Toward the end of the run, he had a challenge with forward drive and getting the car up off from the corners. He said he worked on different lines, getting down into the corners, and feels like he learned a lot during this session. Darian radioed back to him and said, everybody is facing that, but your fall off on speed from lap 10 to 15 is significantly less than Shane Van Gisbergen and Chris Buescher, who are two cars that they monitored and watched. So it sounds like Connor Zilic has similar problems in that the car is loose, but maybe not quite as severe as Shane Van Gisbergen. And as they talked about, the speed fall off for Chris Buescher was the same as well. Very, very dramatic after 10 to 15 laps, where Connor Zilic had a fall off of speed, but not quite as much. So they're going to go to work on this race car just a little bit. The Red Bull colors on the car. Darian Grubb and this team, a really accomplished team here to see what they can do for the youngster Connor Zilic here at Watkins Glen this weekend.
Both Connor Zilic and Shane Van Gisbergen ran the most laps in Group 1. They both ran 19 laps in that practice session, two better than everybody else. Kurt, as we get set to put Group 2 drivers on the track.
They will include Eric Jones, A.J. Allmendinger, Denny Hamlin, John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Dillon, Josh Berry, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, Austin Cindric, Carson Hocevar, all getting set to go.
Along with Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Alex Bowman, Ryan Preece, Bubba Wallace, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, and William Byron in Group 2.
Again, this is practice for the Go Bowling at the Glen, and Motor Racing Network will have live coverage coming up for you tomorrow afternoon from the Finger Lakes region of New York. It'll be 90 laps tomorrow, 220 miles the distance, and annually one of the highlights of the summer schedule.
We'll have Group 2 practice in just a moment from Watkins Glen International. This is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Hey NASCAR fans, would you like to win a brand new vehicle? Enter to win a Black Widow Chevy Silverado from
Not a cloud in the sky. There's a bit of haze overhead, but it's not necessarily weather-related. It is smoke from the Canadian wildfires that have been burning for the majority of this summer. We dealt with it in Iowa last week, dealing with it again here in upstate New York, and our continued thoughts with everybody up in Canada.
It seems like it has improved in the time since we got to town, because we were here yesterday throughout the day to cover the ARCA Menard Series and the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Every time we would glance out the broadcast booth window here above the start-finish line and look toward our left, out toward the north portion of the course beyond the S's, it was very difficult at times, Todd, yesterday to see those hills in the distance.
Yes, it is, and it's a clearer day today. Depends on where the prevailing winds are. The haze that was over here, we've kind of seen that a few times. We saw it at Iowa last week. We've seen it here, but this is one of those places that it's just a bright, sunshiny degrees. Love the weather we've got up here at Watkins Glen.
It is absolutely spectacular this time of year here at Watkins Glen International, as we're at the south end of one of the Finger Lakes. It's Seneca Lake, just off to our left behind turn number 1, with an average depth there. Well, I should say the deepest part of it is over 600 feet deep. Let's hear from the fastest driver in all of Group 1.
Justin Haley is the fastest driver. He's down here doing a little debrief with Michael McDowell as they're talking the finer points of the Chevrolets here as they get set and watching these cars in the second group down here. We'll see what happens with it, but Justin down here talking. Justin looked awful good on the speed charts, top in the long run and short run speed. How did it feel from the driver's seat?
Yeah, it felt good. We unloaded great. Everyone on the Gamebridge Chevy is doing a great job. So, just super thankful to be in fast race cars. We're going to try to execute qualifying here and have a good weekend.
A good weekend is what they're looking for. The Gamebridge colors on the Chevrolet for Justin Haley, fastest not only in the short run but in the long run in that Group A practice session.
He and teammate Michael McDowell from Spire Motorsports topping the leaderboard in that first practice session. Spire already got their first ever ARCA Menard Series win here just yesterday when Tristan McKee, 15 years old and his first career start, goes to victory lane. Spire Motorsports, they have a lot going on across various series. Very important, too, as far as their driver development program.
You mentioned the ARCA Menard Series. They ran multiple vehicles yesterday in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And, oh, by the way, in the Cup race here at Watkins Glen 1 year ago, they finished top 10 with all 3 of their entries.
Check back in downstairs with Chris Wilner.
Kyle Larson was top 5 in Group number 1. Looking over some of the data, Kyle, how would you assess that 25 minutes? It goes by in a hurry.
It does go by fast. But yeah, I feel like my car is much more better or gripped up than last year, so makes things a little bit easier behind the wheel, and you're not kind of searching for speed and what you can do behind the wheel. Obviously, there's still areas I can be better, and that's what I'm looking at right now. But comfort-wise, it feels close. So we'll pay attention to our teammates here, and I'm sure they'll be really fast too. And then we'll all kind of talk about it and see how to be good for qualifying and the race tomorrow.
How difficult is it to balance trying to find speed, but also knowing in the race you got to be able to pass too as well?
Yeah, well, hopefully you qualify good, and there'll be less passing that has to be done. But for me, really right now, just trying to think about what areas I'm good, think about what areas I can be better, and how to do better behind the wheel, and then try to piece it all together and execute a good qualifying session.
Appreciate your time. Kyle Larson going to go back to studying some data. Areas to get better. Drivers are always learning. And by the way, he's not done. As soon as we wrap up qualifying here today, he's going to hop on a plane and go for his 4th Knoxville Nationals win, where he starts 9th tonight, and then a late night flight back here to Watkins Glen to race in the Cup race tomorrow.
Not sure that I'd want my driver doing all that, but he does a great job of doing it. One of the things I took out of this, Chris, you talked about he's going to look at his teammates' data. That's one of the great parts when you've got multiple cars. You can run one session and look at the cars that came out of that for the next one. The one organization this weekend that doesn't have that benefit, Team Penske. All of their cars are in this group too and have to work off of their own information.
That is true, and we will have those cars coming onto the racetrack here in just a moment as they get ready to go. All 3 of the Team Penske cars, so Austin Cindric and Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney, all getting ready to take to the racetrack as we get ready to start the Group 2 practice. As we await the cars to come onto the track, Alex, you and I both have roots in the Midwestern United States. Agriculture is big there. But Todd is a native New Yorker. And one of the things that struck me when we got to town and we flew into Syracuse and then made the drive to Ithaca and the Watkins Glen region, you think about large commercial farming operations in the Midwest. I love the model that a lot of folks that have farms in upstate New York use, more of a localized focus with Take 'em and Pop Winery and so forth, with a bistro, and they just it's almost like they're welcoming you personally onto their farm.
Yeah, you're right about that. It really is a different type of atmosphere up and around here as the green flag goes in the air now for Group 2. The 25-minute clock begins to run. but it is such a welcoming region here in upstate New York around the Finger Lakes region. They love their agriculture. They love their racing so much. Todd Gordon, your middle name is your parents named you after a legendary racer from this area.
Yeah, when you think about it, I mean, I don't know if it's named after, but definitely name was influenced by. My parents both went to Oswego State to school, and Oswego is the home of the super modifieds. They're, back in the day, that was kind of the feeder to going to Indy cars. But Todd, my middle name's Bentley. There's a guy in the Northeast that's known very well, Bentley Warren, that drove those for years, won tons of races. A racer that he was an icon all the way through, still is today. Just won in everything, was really good, and had a good time doing it.
Alex, have you found, you mentioned coming to New York, and there are tremendous race fans here. One thing I've found, if I go out on the infield, if you're going to strike up a racing conversation with New York race fans, you better know your stuff.
Yes, and I don't necessarily know if I would challenge them on their knowledge either, because they'll let you know that you're wrong in a hurry, and rightfully so. Sometimes you just got to take your medicine out there. But we've had a wonderful time, as we always do, every year coming to Watkins Glen International. The fans absolutely are everywhere. The infield jam-packed. We've walked the midway out here earlier today. We did it yesterday as well. Fans are absolutely rabid around here. They love their motorsports, and specifically NASCAR racing.
Had good crowds here yesterday for the Arca Menard Series event, and also for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Talked about Tristan McKee winning the former. The latter went to Corey Heim. But our focus right now is the NASCAR Cup Series, and the Group 2 practice is now underway. 23 minutes remaining here. Cars have worked their way around the racetrack and back across start-finish as Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace and Ryan Blaney all head for Turn 1.
As they make their opening hot laps, if you will, here. Just a reminder that the NASCAR Xfinity Series will be racing here at Watkins Glen International later today, and you can hear it live right here on the Motor Racing Network at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time for our live flag-to-flag coverage of the Mission 200 at the Glen for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Connor Zilich won pole position for that event, and he's going to be a formidable opponent for the rest of the Xfinity field.
You've got Connor Zilich and Shane Van Gisbergen. They are starting on the front row here later today. Sam Mayer, fresh off his victory recently at Iowa. That was just 1 week ago. He also qualified in the top 5. Kaz Gralla will be in the lineup. He made the top 10. Justin Allgaier in the top 10 as well. And again, our live coverage coming up for the Mission 200 at the Glen at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. From Watkins Glen International, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Get ready to rev your engines, NASCAR fans. The thrill, the speed. You can now experience it all for free.
Afternoon. Group 1 already is wrapped up. Talked about the fact that Justin Haley was the quickest of that opening group. Austin Cindric so far among the leaders here in this particular group, although just 13th overall on the leaderboard.
They're beginning to get their opening couple of laps in. One of the drivers here in this group is William Byron. Broke through, got a big win last week to try to almost right the ship of their season, if you will, after picking up the win in the season opening Daytona 500. William Byron here in group number 2. He's a driver that a lot of people, Chris Wilner, may have on their I guess you could say their betting parlay for Watkins Glen.
Yeah, I think so, Alex Hayden, and rightfully so. I mean, he won this race 2 years ago. Now, last year was a bit of an anomaly. Don't forget, we had a new tire here at this race last year, and I think it took a lot of teams, including William Byron and Rudy Fugle, a little bit of time to get diagnosed of just what this tire does as far as the long run, the fall off, and other ways that this tire performs around this fast road course. And William Byron spent some time with the media today, and he was pretty adamant that they had a big notebook kind of filled up between last year and coming into this year about maybe what they learned, the tendencies, and maybe a better baseline to roll out here at Watkins Glen with. So talk about momentum for a driver, not only coming off that win, but then coming up here to a good racetrack that they feel like they can continue to build on that momentum. And you guys had mentioned it, finally broke through with that win at Iowa. I mean, it had been pretty much a tumultuous, probably early summer portion of the season, and William was open and honest this morning about the fact that it's honestly helped him has been seeing a sports therapist over the last couple of years and understanding that you have to really keep in mind the perspective of the season and that there are some things that are just out of your control and you have to let those go. And he felt like he handled adversity a lot better this year, which was allowed them to really right the ship and really capitalize on an opportunity last week with a big strategy call. So William Byron riding a ton of momentum, and they feel like that today should be a lot better as far as getting a good read on the race car, and so expect William Byron to be up towards the front when we're all said and done.
Don't know that anybody, including William and his crew chief, could have seen the number of cautions that were going to unfold last Sunday at Iowa. But as Chris alluded to, it's all about being in the right position to go ahead and capitalize on the circumstance, and they certainly did that. Also, our producer, Trey Downey, kind of took you to task, Alex, a moment ago about the betting parlay. Now, he said you maybe should have said having William Byron on your betting slip. Are people who will bet across multiple series, so if somebody out there has a ticket with Corey Heim winning yesterday, part of the parlay could be William Byron on Sunday.
So was I right or wrong?
I think you're spot on.
Oh, thank you, Kurt. Clearly, I'm not one of the gambling type out there.
There is a mountain of evidence in your favor.
We are in Group 2 right now with the NASCAR Cup Series practice for tomorrow's Go Bowling at the Glen. Qualifying for that race will be held here as soon as this group wraps up their practice session in another 17 and a half minutes. In this group, Chase Briscoe is the fastest single lap speed of Group 2. However, Todd Gordon, that's only good enough for 9th on the overall leaderboard.
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting because it's lap 4 for all these guys. If you look, Justin Haley was lap 2. For McDowell, it was 3. Busher was 4, but there's a lot of 2s and 3s in the top 8 times out here. This may be a little bit, Kurt asked earlier, Group 1 versus Group 2. We had Xfinity qualifying on the racetrack before this, which tends to pick rubber out of the racetrack if there is rubber in there. I don't feel like the Group 1 guys, the back half of their practice was a penalty, but the rubber that they laid down in that practice may actually deter a little bit of speed out of this Group 2. But this Group 2 probably gets a better feel for what the fall-off is for the entire race because the track's already a little conditioned.
Alex talked about the fact that Chase Briscoe has been the quickest of Group 2 thus far, but it's just 9th overall on the leaderboard as far as fastest speeds, individual laps thus far in these 2 practice sessions. Only 2 1,000ths of a second at one point had separated Briscoe from the second quickest in this particular session. In fact, that's still the case. So as far as group for group, the individuals who are at the top in each, not a whole lot of separation.
There is not, but I think something else that is worth talking about is the Group 2 drivers. They have just now clicked off 5 consecutive laps. William Byron has gone to 5th in the 5 consecutive lap average. His Hendrick Motorsports teammate Alex Bowman has popped up into the top 10 in consecutive 5 lap averages, as Bowman is now in the 8th position on that note as well. So while they're not top of the leaderboard, Kurt, they are certainly in the ballpark.
And the quickest overall thus far came out of Group 1. That was Justin Haley. We heard from him moments ago. His quickest individual lap was 113 119.617 miles per hour, and that was his last 121.364, the quickest of his laps that he ran. He ended up running 17 laps total, and again, his fastest, a little over 121 miles per hour. That's better than 73 seconds. That's about 72.6 seconds for one lap around this 2.45 mile layout. And as Todd Gordon touched on moments ago, Shane Van Gisbergen and also Connor Zilic, they ran the most laps of anybody in Group 1, but just 19 overall.
Todd, what are you looking at here with these Group 2 drivers as you study not only telemetry but timing and scoring?
It's just looking at where the lap time degradation is for these guys and where they've gotten to. It's one of those situations where, trying to get a feel for what these guys need to do and what the crew chiefs are anticipating out of this data for where they'll end up being race strategy-wise.
Seems like over the years, Todd, we've gone to a lot of ovals where we hear about especially the older, worn-out racing surfaces that will quickly chew up tires. And you mentioned the term tire degradation and how quickly the tires fall off, how they lose their speed. What about road courses in general, Watkins Glen in particular? In your experience, has tire degradation been as big a factor in this particular setting?
Well, Goodyear came here last year with a new tire and anticipated create more lap time fall off. And then when they came for the test and did that test in the spring to summer, it was like 4 seconds of lap time degradation in 25 laps. It was astronomical. Everybody wondered where it was going to be. By the time these crew chiefs got to work on the cars in last year's race, they cut that in half. It was more like 2 seconds, and the good guys probably a little bit less than that. That's one of the pieces when you look at road course racing. As a whole, if you go back in my days when we won here, it was all about racing the race backwards. Getting to the point, basically saying end of the race, how early can I pit and still have enough fuel to get there? And then from that point, how early can I pit to get to that point? So those are some of the things you're looking at. But as Goodyear has introduced new tires, and they've done such a good job of helping us with the short track and road course program, now there's lap time degradation. Now it becomes more of a question, like you talked about at the other places, the ovals that are worn out. How long can I run on tires? It may not be just the fuel windows. It may be trying to put yourself in a window where the tire doesn't fall off that cliff where you lose a lot of lap time at the end of the run, and strategizing your way forward from there.
Right now here in Group 2, Chase Briscoe continues to be the fastest of the Group 2. Again, 9th overall in the single lap speeds. You go down the running order for these Group 2 drivers, and you see 2311 Racing a little further down the leaderboard. Tyler Reddick is back in 28th on single lap speeds, and you like to think Tyler Reddick is a road course guy. He's won quite a few on the road courses. Bubba Wallace is all the way back on what we call the right side of the computer screen, which is on the wrong side. Bubba Wallace is 34th. Riley Herbst is the best of the 2311 cars, Chris Wilner. Herbst is 26th right now on the leaderboard.
Yeah, Alex, still a lot of work to do for the 2311 drivers. Listening to both Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick. Bubba currently on pit road right now. The crew working underneath the right front tire of his pink Toyota with the McDonald's sponsorship on it. Checked in with the radio, and Bubba just said, I'm way too snug throughout this entire road course. Really can't get the drive off that he wants because it is plowing tight, and the car just is really almost too stuck in the racetrack where he can't get it pointed straight. So they're going to work on the chassis adjustment, also possibly a spring adjustment as well. I may have caught that over the radio. For Tyler Reddick, the first 4 corners not to his liking at all. And of course, that is a fast section when you talk about the exit of turn 1 all the way up through the S's down the back straightaway. So they're working on the high speed section for Tyler Reddick, offering different lines as well throughout the racetrack as he continues to work, but not the car's not handling to either of these drivers' likings right now. Bubba Wallace on pit road for an adjustment. I would expect to see Tyler Reddick maybe come down as well, because certainly as the longer he runs, it's not getting any better for that driver.
Still some 11 minutes to go here for Group 2. And again, Tyler Reddick shows 28th overall. From Watkins Glen International, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
This is Kyle Larson.
I'm David Grouse.
Hi, I'm Donnie Shaw.
This is Brian Brown.
This is Danny Dietrich.
Wing Nation is your go-to destination.
for Group 2 practice for the NASCAR Cup Series for tomorrow's Go Bowling at the Glen. Alex, before we went to the break, you talked about drivers whose names are appearing on the wrong side of the computer screen, because if you're in the column over to the right, that means you're slow. Regrettably for RFK Racing, 2/3 of their drivers find themselves in that spot.
Yeah, they are. One of them being Ryan Preece. He's 33rd, and Brad Kozlowski is 35th. The third car of that trio from RFK is Chris Buescher. He was in Group 1, the defending winner of this race. Well, Buescher is third fastest overall. So clearly Chris Buescher has a good feel for this race course, whereas the other two, struggling just a bit.
Speaking of drivers that have a good feel for this race course, how about Ross Chastain? He was the pole sitter here when we last came here back in September of 2024. Let's get an update on Chastain with Steve Post.
They're having what seems to be a solid day. I say seems to be because they're not saying one word on the radio, and I'll go back to a conversation. Todd Gordon and I, we do crew call, and Phil Surgeon was our guest on crew call, and he suggested that if the car is decent, remotely good, they're going to probably run the full stage out, and that looks what it looks like it's happening here as Ross Chastain is just running laps and getting lap times in. On the bigger picture with this race team, they really need to have a good day Saturday. And as a matter of fact, they went all the way to the top. Justin Marks was in the media center announcing an extension of a contract with Shane Van Gisbergen today, and he was asked about this one team, this Ross Chastain team, and he said, the facts are we just need to do better with this team on Saturday. We need to qualify better. We race really, really good, but we're racing from 27th or 32nd starting spot. So they really are putting an effort on how they do on Saturday. Going back a week ago at Iowa, Phil shared with us on crew call that they felt like they had a really good Saturday going. When they got to the qualifying run, Ross hit a bump just wrong time, wrong place, wrong way, and they ended up qualifying again, I think 27th or somewhere in the middle of the back half of the pack, and they just need a good day Saturday. So this is a good racetrack for them. They won the pole last year. That would be really, really good, but a good solid top 10 qualifying run would be great for this team, and they could race from ahead of the curve instead of playing catch-up all day long. So that's what they're looking for. Again, it's been very, very quiet on the radio as Ross Chastain is just logging laps, and I'm sure making notes on how the car is going over the course of this run so they can share that once they finally decide to pull the plug on this practice run.
And to expand on some of what we talked about on crew call with Phil Surgeon this week, he talked a little bit about going to the simulator, that Ross and Shane Van Gisbergen have almost become like coach and student in different situations. That when we go to road courses, Ross has got Shane there to kind of talk him through what he looks for at these places. And there's times that he's just giving straightforward to what it is, or no, don't look for that, don't look for that, look for this. And vice versa, when we go to ovals, some of these unique ovals, that Ross is there to work with Shane. It's part of the teamwork they've got at Trackhouse, and I think a good situation. Ross is 11th on the board right now. I think a good weekend ahead of them this weekend.
I think so too, and this is a team that has had some hiccups here. In the last 7 races, they've had 5 finishes of 24th or worse. So a team that's got to win, going to the playoffs, and Ross Chastain and that Trackhouse Racing team, they won the Coca-Cola 600, remember, from the back of the field in a backup car. They also, as Steve pointed out, not only won the pole here at Watkins Glen last year, but they also led a race-high 51 laps in this race a year ago.
4 drivers in the lineup for Trackhouse here this weekend, and really, to some extent, all 4 have shown speed in this practice session. Shane Van Gisbergen is 6th overall. Connor Zilic checks in 7th. We talked about Ross Chastain at 11th. Daniel Suarez, right toward the center of the pack, he shows in the 21st position as we continue to work our way through at the Glen.
As we continue on, overall, Justin Haley's the fastest. He came out of group number 1. Things have changed on the 10 consecutive lap average now that these group 2 drivers have eclipsed that 10 consecutive lap mark. William Byron has gone to the top of the leaderboard there in that mix from Hendrick Motorsports. Chase Elliott, who's won here at Watkins Glen, as a matter of fact, Chris Wilner, this is where he got his first career NASCAR Cup Series win. What are they saying about Chase Elliott?
Yeah, Chase Elliott would love to get another win and finally get a road course win in a next-gen car, but they still have some work to do. Alan Gustafson on the radio letting Chase know, because Chase has been asking, where am I compared to my teammate William Byron? Well, Alan came over the radio and said, you're still about 4/10 off. off. So they're still trying to work on some long-run speed on that Napa Chevrolet for Chase Elliott. The rest of the Hendrick group, Alex Bowman also trying to catch his teammate in that long-run category. Blake Harris saying that the car has been really, really snug, so he's been going to work for his driver, Alex Bowman, who is now on the pit lane trying to get one final adjustment in, but time's starting to run low, about 4.5 minutes. So if you're going to make an adjustment, now's the chance. But again, all the Hendrick drivers now chasing William Byron. I mentioned the momentum and the fact that they felt like they had a good long-run base off the truck. Well, boy, it's showing here this afternoon.
What Alan didn't tell him is that you're in the club with everybody else, because William Byron is an outlier at this point. No, his fast lap isn't there. When you look at the fast lap, it was 2 or 3 for the other teams. His fast lap came at 4, but he hung on to that speed as it went forward. Really looks like they got great pace in this 24 car.
Todd, I'm curious. It seems like when the weekend began, I overheard you talk about drivers that can get a lap in 72 seconds and change. So would you say is maybe a 73-second lap kind of the barometer to gauge where you are here today?
Well, it's how you hang on to it. And really, when I look at William Byron, we get out to lap 12, lap 13. He's still running 73.5-second lap times. A lot of guys are in the 74s at that point. So it is. You've got to kind of put the long run together. And that's what all these guys are trying to figure out is, how can I hang on to speed? How do I not overheat my brakes? How do I keep my braking zones good where I can continue to make pace as I work forward?
We've got just 3 minutes remaining in total practice for the Go Bowling at the Glen here at Watkins Glen International. Gives us a chance to step away and pause 10 seconds for station identification on the Motor Racing Network. Motor Racing Network is live at Watkins Glen International here in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. I'm Alex Hayden alongside Kurt Becker and Todd Gordon. We're high atop the start-finish line here at this wonderful historic road course with Steve Post and Chris Wilner up and down the pit lane.
A couple of the Team Penske cars just came off the racing surface, came down pit road, and backed into their stalls on the pit lane. Joey Logano and Austin Cindric, the quickest of the 3 Team Penske drivers thus far. Again, they're all in this group 2. Quickest of those is Ryan Blaney, but he checks in 14th fastest overall. Then you got to drop down a little bit. Got to go to 18th spot to find Joey Logano, and then just outside the top 20 to find Austin Cindric.
Cindric is 22nd right now on the leaderboard. As a matter of fact, Cindric is now popped into the top 5 in the 15 consecutive lap average. Cindric goes to the number 4 spot. And again, this is combined from the Group 1 cars. William Byron has gone to the top of the 15 lap average as well. So the team that won the Daytona 500 maybe stubbed their toe at the summer stretch, busted through the big win last week in the Iowa Corn 350 at Iowa Speedway, and now the momentum clearly carrying over to Watkins Glen.
Always find that interesting. And Todd, to that point, you think about William Byron, you come out of the box, he repeats in the Daytona 500. We always talk about the fact that, yes, granted, the Daytona 500 is the so-called Super Bowl of this sport. But, you know, every week these races mean a lot to these teams, and folks might not think of Iowa Speedway in the long-term historical context of a big track like Daytona as far as a 2.5-mile super speedway and what all that means. But that win at Iowa last week obviously did mean a great deal to that team.
Yeah, it definitely did, and it got them back to victory lane. You know, they won at Daytona, and they've had speed, but they needed to execute their way through it and get to the point. Rudy had had a couple races, I think of Michigan, I think of Indianapolis, where they were on the losing end of the fuel battle. And this was one, Rudy was honest about it. He said, I came at 206, I didn't plan on that being my last stop. The cautions put me where we could manufacture something out of it. You got to love it when you can get those, because they've had a lot of speed. They led darn near the whole Coke 600, and then just got passed with 10, 15 laps to go. So it was an impressive run for those guys, and a big booster to build momentum building into the playoffs as we look forward. So one of the people I talk about him being really good, I was looking through the lap times. Chase Briscoe actually looks really good. He has a spike where his lap times went down. I went back and looked at a little bit of it. He was working his way around Ryan Blaney. He took him 3 or 4 laps to find his way around that. Came back to matching lap times at lap 15 and 16 with where William Byron had gotten to. He looks really good, and a teammate of his is always good here, Denny Hamlin. Chris, you got something there?
Yeah, Denny just pulled his Toyota down pit road, Todd, and he is not a happy camper. Just saying it is extremely tight throughout the entire length of his run out on the racetrack. So they ran a good significant amount of this session. It did not remedy itself. It did not get any better. And, of course, now with time expiring, there's not much they could do as far as a change and then see where they're at. So they're going to have to make a change and then see how it works in qualifying. But kind of shocking me because Watkins Glen traditionally has kind of been Denny's bread and butter when it comes to road course races. I mean, his only win in a road course has come here back in 2016. He's won 2 of the last 6 poles here at Watkins Glen, but I don't know about today. They're going to try to diagnose a very tight race car for that progressive Toyota and Denny Hamlin.
They're going to have 10 minutes to try to figure out what kind of adjustments they can make, and they are limited on their types of adjustments that they can do. As we get set for pole qualifying for the Go Bowling at the Glen, practice is officially over for both groups. From Watkins Glen International, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR. Practice is officially over for the Go Bowling at the Glen. Coming up next is pole qualifying. The single lap speeds in practice. Michael McDowell, Chris Buescher, Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, Shane Van Gisbergen, Connor Zilisch, Todd Gilliland was 8th, Chase Briscoe 9th, and William Byron was 10th.
If I were to say to you that after practice now has wrapped up, Justin Haley, the biggest surprise, would you agree?
Yes, 100%. I didn't have him on my gambling slip, as I've learned is the proper term. No, you know that's just part of it. You never know any given race weekend what you're going to have as a race team, or let alone once you start seeing how practice begins to unfold.
No, and the fact that we brought a slightly different tire, I talked to a lot of crew chiefs this morning. They're like, well, it's supposed to be the same, but it's not. It's a little bit softer, but it's a little harder. They weren't sure, and I think all that goes into your preparation, how you come to the racetrack, and you're not sure what you're really going to have till you get the real race tire on the real racetrack.
So practice is wrapped up. Now we turn our attention to qualifying for the Go Bowling at the Glen. And this is a race which traditionally, it seems, qualifying in the top 10, if not the top 5, can often be a good indicator of success on race day. We say often, not always, because Chris Buescher kind of blew that theory apart here last year.
Yeah, he did. He started the deepest anybody's ever come from to win a race at Watkins Glen in the NASCAR Cup Series. I believe 24th is where he started that particular race. But when you think qualifying here in 2025 in the NASCAR Cup Series, you have to start thinking Chase Briscoe, do you not, Todd?
Yeah, 6 poles so far this year? It's been impressive. The run that he and James Small have been on, it seems like they've clicked together on what they need to do to make pace in the race cars, and he's adapted very well. They've had a plethora of front row starts.
Talked about William Byron, a former winner, just won here a couple of years ago in the NASCAR Cup Series. And again, he had good speed in that practice session. Hoping to get a word from him just here very shortly as we continue to anticipate the start of qualifying for the Go Bowling at the Glen. Byron, among the leaders from the Hendrick Motorsports stable, a driver that always seems to run well here. He's had 3 top 10 finishes in his 6 prior visits here for the NASCAR Cup Series. Talked about the fact that the short track win at Iowa last week was a good momentum builder for that organization.
Yeah, no question about that. And he's sporting a bit of a different look personally here. Ran into him in the garage this morning. Got a nice beard going here at Watkins Glen.
3 top 10 finishes in his 6 prior visits here for the NASCAR Cup Series. Talked about the fact that the short track win at Iowa last week was a good momentum builder for that organization.
Yeah, no question about that. And he's sporting a bit of a different look personally here. Ran into him in the garage this morning. Got a nice beard going here at Watkins Glen, or as they say in my parts, a soup strainer or a crumb catcher. But yeah, William Byron's got a bit of a different look about him, a little air of confidence after winning last week. Todd, are you a believer of momentum, or is that just a simple matter of everybody knows the sense of accomplishment, and that is what creates a next week?
100% I believe in momentum. 100%. This is professional sports. You feel confident you're going to be better. It doesn't matter whether your car is or not. Just your confidence, your ability to communicate clearly. You don't doubt yourself. There's so much when you win and you're in a good position, things go smoother. They go better for you. You're in a great mental position. And I think mental drives a lot of this stuff. Chris Willer, you got some more on William Byron?
And I'm standing here, Todd, with William Byron, who again was quickest on the long run speed. How would you assess the overall session? You had the benefit of watching that opening group, so what did you learn and then apply to that second session?
Yeah, I feel like we learned some stuff, but honestly we kind of went with our gut and what we had prepared with all week, and the guys did a good job bringing a good car here. So got to make it last on the long run as always, but overall, I feel that we brought a good package here, something I could definitely work with.
When you're on the course of a long run, can you feel that you're in kind of the ballpark, or are you relying on Rudy and the rest of the team relaying that info to you?
Yeah, I'm just kind of relying on him. I'm just trying to be consistent and find speed where I feel like there's speed to get, and just trust my instincts to find that pace. But overall, you're trusting him to
winner William Byron. Feeling good, Steve Post.
Other driver who's taken